I remember the silence, not absence of sound, but a profound stillness that marked the moment I died, yet truly lived. I remember the silence most vividly, not the gentle hush of a library or the quiet of a sleeping house, but a silence so profound, so absolute, it was louder than any scream. A silence that swallowed the buzzing of the bone, saw the rapid-fire clicks in my ears, the very beat of my own heart. Because in that silence, I wasn't just quiet. I was gone. And yet, I was more present, more alive than I had ever been. It was the moment I died, only to truly live. Before 1991, my life was a symphony. I was a singer-songwriter in Atlanta, Georgia, and music wasn't just what I did. It was who I was. Every note, every lyric was a piece of my soul sent out into the world. My days were filled with the vibrant hum of creativity, the joy of performance, the intimate connection with an audience. Life felt full, harmonious, and utterly predictable in its beautiful rhythm. I believed in the tangible, the physical, the world I could see and touch and hear with my own senses. Consciousness to me was a product of the brain, a biological marvel that ceased when the electricity flickered out. Then the first discordant notes began to play. It started subtly, a dizzy spell here, a fleeting moment of confusion there. But soon the harmony of my life unravelled. I began to lose my ability to speak, words escaping me like smoke. My body, once so responsive to the melodies I crafted, became sluggish, difficult to command. Each symptom was a tiny tremor in the foundation of my existence, growing into a relentless, terrifying quake. The diagnosis came like a thunderclap, a giant artery aneurysm at the base of my brainstem. Imagine a balloon, swollen and fragile, clinging to the very core of your being, the part of your brain that controls every vital function, consciousness, breathing life itself. The doctors didn't mince words. It was a time bomb, they said, ready to burst at any moment, and if it did, death would be instant. The standard surgical procedures offered little hope. The risks were so astronomical, they predicted I had little to no chance of surviving. My vibrant world had shrunk to a single terrifying question. How do you save a life that seems determined to end? Desperate, yet clinging to a sliver of hope, my family and I searched for answers. That search led us to the Barrow Neurological Institute in Phoenix, Arizona, and to Dr. Robert Spetzler. He was a pioneer, a visionary surgeon known for a procedure so radical, so audacious, it had earned the nickname Operation Standstill. His proposal was chilling in its simplicity. He would intentionally bring me to the brink of death to save my life. He would cool my body to an almost frozen state, stop my heart, cease my breathing, and drain the blood from my brain. For all clinical purposes, I would be dead. My brain waves would flatten, my brainstem would cease to function. It was a terrifying gamble, a forced journey into the unknown, but it was my only chance. I agreed to die to live. The morning of the surgery, August 1991, was a blur of sterile white and hushed urgency. At 7:15 a.m., I was wheeled into the operating room, a symphony of dread and faint hope playing in my chest. The general anesthesia took hold quickly, pulling me down into a dark, familiar oblivion. Or so I thought. The medical team was a small army, over 20 physicians, nurses and technicians, each a silent warrior in this life-or-death battle. They meticulously prepared my body, lubricating my eyes, taping them shut to prevent drying. EEG electrodes were taped to my head to monitor my brain's electrical activity. But it was the ear preparations that felt most invasive, most sealing. Small moulded speakers were inserted deep into my ear canals, then secured with mounds of gauze and tape covering my entire ear. These weren't just for blocking sound, they were part of the monitoring. They would emit rapid 100 decibel clicks, a sound like a speeding express train, 11.3 clicks per second, designed to ensure my brainstem was completely unresponsive, to confirm the flatline of my brain. A technician confirmed later that ordinary conversation around 60 decibels would be utterly drowned out by these clicks, which were 10,000 times more intense. In short, I was blind deaf and soon to be brain dead. The strangest part happened as Dr. Spetzler began the operation. At about 8:40 a.m., I was still under heavy anesthesia, my eyes taped shut, those deafening clicks assaulting my ears. But suddenly, I wasn't in my body anymore. I felt myself hop out of my head like a cork leaving a bottle and found myself floating. My perspective was from above, looking down on my own lifeless form on the operating table. It was surreal, yet undeniably real. I was more aware than I had ever been in my entire life. My vision wasn't normal, it was brighter and more focused and clearer than normal vision. I could see everything with an astonishing clarity, observing the neurosurgeon and his team at work. I remember being surprised by my partially shaved head. I had expected them to take all the hair. Then the saw. The bone saw used to open my skull. It looked like an electric toothbrush, with a dent in it, a groove at the top, where the saw appeared to go into the handle. It even had interchangeable blades stored in what looked like a socket wrench case. The sound it made was unpleasant, a loud buzzing like a dental drill, but it seemed to be used on something other than my head at that moment. Later, after my recovery, the manufacturer's manual confirmed every single detail of my description. How could I have seen this? My eyes were taped shut. Then I heard voices. A female voice, clear as day, said, "We have a problem, her arteries are too small." And then a male voice from further down the table said, "Try the other side." I even remember wondering, what are they doing there? This is brain surgery. Medical records later confirmed this exact conversation took place. But how could I have heard it? Those 100 decibel clicks were pounding in my ears, designed to prevent any external sound from reaching me to measure my brainstem's activity. My hearing, too, felt clearer than with my ears. This out-of-body observation continued as the surgery progressed. The doctors were meticulously working, and I was, for some inexplicable reason, a silent observer. But then the real standstill began. At 10:50 a.m. tubes were inserted into my femoral artery, connecting me to the cardiopulmonary bypass machine. My body temperature began to drop. At 11:05 a.m., my heart stopped entering an irregular fibrillation, then total arrest. My EEG brainwaves, which had been monitored, constantly flatlined into complete electrocerebral silence. My brainstem became completely unresponsive. By 11:25 a.m., the surgical table was tilted, the bypass machine turned off, and the blood was drained from my body like oil from a car. I was by every medical definition clinically dead. My brain had no activity whatsoever, no blood flowing through it. And that's when my journey truly began. The out-of-body experience transformed into something more profound, something otherworldly. I felt a sensation of being pulled not against my will, but as if I wanted to go. It was like being drawn into a tornado vortex, a dark shaft, but without spinning, completely focused. It was like a tunnel, but it wasn't a tunnel, a road, a frequency I was travelling on. At the end of this dark shaft, a tiny pinpoint of light appeared, growing bigger and bigger, brighter and brighter. The light was unlike anything I had ever seen. It was incredibly bright, like sitting in the middle of a light bulb. I instinctively put my hands in front of my face, expecting to see them, but I couldn't. Yet I knew they were there, not from touch, but from a deeper, clearer knowing. As I moved into this brilliant, wonderfully warm and loving light, I began to discern figures. They were covered with light, were light themselves radiating with it. Gradually, they formed shapes I recognized, figures from my life who had passed on. My grandmother was there, her presence unmistakable. Her call reached me not through my ears, but as a clearer hearing than with my ears. My Uncle Jean was there, and my great-great-aunt Maggie and my grandfather. They were there specifically looking after me, nurturing me. They weren't speaking in words, not like how we speak here, but communication was absolute and undeniable. They were feeding me, not with physical food, but with something sparkly, nourishing me, making me feel incredibly strong. It wasn't a physical sensation, yet I felt robust, ready for whatever lay ahead. This realm was filled with an overwhelming sense of oneness, of interconnectedness, as if my soul was part of God and everything in existence was created from this light, this breathing of God. There was profound knowledge, a universal understanding of everything, but then they stopped me. They wouldn't let me go further into the light. The communication was clear. If I went all the way, they wouldn't be able to put this me back into the body me. I would have gone too far, and the connection would be broken. My grandmother just looked at me, a loving gaze that conveyed her decision not to take me back. It was my uncle who stepped forward, offering to lead me back through the tunnel. I didn't want to go back. I really didn't. As I reached the end of the tunnel and saw the thing, my body lying there, it looked terrible, like a train wreck. It looked dead, and I believe it was covered. It scared me, and I recoiled from it. But the message came again reassuringly. It was like jumping into a swimming pool. No problem, just jump right into the swimming pool. I hesitated, but I must have been late because my uncle pushed me. The re-entry was immediate shocking. I felt a definite repelling and at the same time a pulling from the body. It was like diving into a pool of ice water, and it hurt. This intense sensation happened right between the two electrical jolts from the defibrillator. I had seen my body jump from the first jolt while still out, but I felt the second one as I was pushed back in. Back in the operating room, the surgery was nearing its end. The aneurysm, now empty, had collapsed and was removed. Warm blood was pumped back into my body, and slowly my temperature began to rise. The blips on the electrogram, once silent, registered the first signs of life in my brainstem, then my higher brain centers. My heart, which had been shocked back to a normal rhythm, was beating once more. The surgical assistants were closing the incisions, and rock music was playing in the background. I heard it distinctly, the song Hotel California, and the line that stuck in my mind was, "You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave." It felt incredibly insensitive at the time, given what I had just experienced, and I told Dr. Brown later. He just told me I needed more sleep, and we laughed. At 2:10 p.m. I was moved to the recovery room stable. When I finally regained the ability to speak days later, I recounted my experience to my family and my husband. We joked about it, dismissing it as a wild hallucination, a strange dream under heavy medication. But the nurses, the doctor, the anesthesiologist, and the neurophysiologist, they weren't laughing. They looked at me with a stunned silence, hardly daring to meet my gaze. They knew that I was not hallucinating, and that this had occurred. I remember thinking. They kept telling me it wasn't a hallucination, that what I saw really happened. Even Dr. Spetzler confirmed it, saying what I related so quickly after surgery was remarkably precise as to some details that went on in the surgery. My experience was later measured on the Grayson NDE scale, scoring a 27 out of a possible 32, far exceeding the average. It was one of the most medically well-documented cases of a near-death experience in history, making it a pivotal point in the study of consciousness. The transformation in me was profound and permanent. Before, like many, I feared death. Now that fear is gone, utterly eradicated, how can I fear something that I now know is so incredibly beautiful? If death is the worst thing that happens to us, what an incredible thing, I realized. If at the end of our lives this is what's going to happen to everyone, I don't see the problem. I really don't get it. I fear pain, but I don't fear death. I recovered fully from the operation and lived a healthy life for many more years until 2010, when I passed away at 53 from heart failure. But the core of who I was, my understanding of life and death, was forever altered. My beliefs, values, and worldview shifted. It wasn't a hallucination, a fleeting fantasy that faded with time. This was real, etched vividly into my being for decades. Skeptics tried to explain it away. Anesthesia awareness, they said, that I must have been semi-conscious, picking up sounds, then later fabricating the visuals. But how do you explain seeing a specific, unique bone saw with taped eyes? How do you hear distinct conversations over 100 decibel clicks and white noise? The medical personnel confirmed it was impossible through normal channels, and my experience was nothing like typical anesthesia awareness, which often involves panic pain and total darkness, none of which I felt. My experience was lucid, clear and peaceful with heightened perceptions. Others suggested a lack of oxygen to the brain or brain stimulation. But lack of oxygen causes confusion and poor memory, the exact opposite of my experience. And while brain stimulation can produce fragmented, distorted experiences, they don't compare to the detailed, coherent and transformative nature of an NDE like mine. My experience, like so many others who have journeyed to the threshold and returned challenges, everything we think we know about consciousness. It strongly suggests that mind and consciousness are not solely a product of brain activity, that they can exist independently even when the brain shows no measurable activity. It's a profound thought, isn't it? That what we perceive as I might not be confined to the physical body. This wasn't just a brush with death. It was an immersion in life's deepest mystery. I came back with a certainty that there is something more, a transcendent level of reality that is normally inaccessible to our senses. It's a reality of boundless love, profound peace, and universal interconnectedness. This isn't a lecture or a theory. It's my deepest, most heartfelt realization. So what does this mean for you, for all of us? It means that every breath, every moment is precious, that the fear of death can be replaced by a profound understanding of life's eternal nature. It means that the love we share, the connections we forge, are far more significant than we can possibly imagine in this earthly realm. Live fully, love deeply, and know that there is a vast, beautiful reality beyond the veil waiting for us all. The silence that once terrified me now sings a melody of peace, a promise of a journey that never truly ends.